I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with a salute to the flag, some announcements, and a little bit of a revised agenda. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to a very interesting time in our town's history. For the record, the amount of chairs that are there are specific to capping whatever the recommended grouping was at 2 o'clock today. That's probably changed 3 or 4 times, but that's the number of chairs there. I need a motion to suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda, which would, I'll make a motion to temporarily allow for all of our meetings, phone participation by our members for a period of 30 days.
So moved.
The item has been moved and seconded. Discussion on the item. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I'm going to write that vote down as 8-0. So.
Just for the procedure for the minutes, how does Kathy record the 4 people that are calling in? How does she recognize them for the minutes? And especially with the votes, are they abstaining?
No, on that, they're just, the vote will be 8-0-0. The votes for the rest of the night, because we now have 12, will be whatever the numbers are on that. Okay?
Do we have all 4 on the?
Yes, all 4 of them are on the phone, to my knowledge. That brings me to, we have a guest who'd like to say hello. We have a first selectman who would also like to address us on an item, and I would ask under new business, his coronavirus update, that we move that up to right now, if that's okay with everyone. So with that, I'd first like to start with the town attorney. Attorney Marino, welcome. This is the easiest visit you're going to ever have with the Board of Finance in the town of Greenwich.
Well, I appreciate that. I just wanted to come and say hello. I don't believe I've been to one of your meetings yet, and I wanted to introduce myself formally. Vince Marino, the town attorney. I recently did have a change in law firms. We opened up our own law firm called Marino, Zabel, and Schellenberg. That law firm is basically a bunch of my partners from my municipal practice group. And I split off from Cohen & Wolf to do what we believe will better serve the communities that we represent for reasons that I don't want to get into too much on in public, but basically when you're dealing with a firm and the overhead of a firm of 70 years, it's hard sometimes to provide the municipal service at the lower rate that municipalities demand. And since those of us who practice in this area love practicing in this area, we want to continue to service our towns at those lower rates. So that was the primary reason for the split off from Cohen & Wolf. However, Cohen & Wolf and the new firm is continuing to have a friendly relationship and will be available for referral when and if needed. And just so anyone knows, there is no relationship by way of cost sharing between the new firm and the old firm. So if Cohen & Wolf sends an invoice, 100% of that invoice will be paid to Cohen & Wolf and none of it to the new law firm. And the proposed relationship with the new law firm and the town would be identical to the old relationship at the stated retainer amount and then the discounted fee on top of that.
Thank you. For our members who are on the phone, let me see if I can introduce who's here. Obviously, the 8 of us. Catherine's here. Roland's here. Peter's here. Mr. Borsik's here. And I forgot your name. I'm sorry. David Schass. David Schass is here for the Round Hill project. And our complete Board of Selectmen is here with us tonight. So again, back to you. Thank you for coming. And
I appreciate the time. If anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Vince. I just wondered, because I've been attending the law committee meetings, and Pat Sullivan has been in attendance. Will Pat be continuing, or will there be another individual working with you?
Yes, so Pat has remained at Cohen & Wolf at this time. Courtney George and Barbara Schellenberg, who are two of my partners from Cohen & Wolf, who are with me at the new firm. They will be coming down, and I'll be introducing them to the group as well. I'm also going to be introducing David Zabel to the town as well, so that the town will have more immediate, instead of just 2 lawyers, actually access to 4 lawyers on a daily basis. So if there's any conflicts, hopefully out of 4 of us, we'll be able to get to your answers as quickly as possible. Absolutely.
Thanks, we look forward to working with you.
Mr. Deuce?
If we have questions, should we go through you, or is there someone on staff here at Town Hall that we should speak with?
I would say at this time, if there are any questions, preferably send me an email at my Greenwich email address. But what I'll also do is work on getting you my card with my cell phone number. And if you have a telephone, you can call me on that number at any time. Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
First Selectman Camillo.
Thank
How
you,
you
Mr.
holding
Chair.
up?
I'm hanging in there. How about you?
We're holding in.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the BET. I'm here tonight to request $100,000 as seed money for, somebody objecting already?
David, I think you need to put your
That sounded
phone
like
on
Joe
mute.
Siciliano.
My phone is on mute, so I can't hear very well.
Anyway, I will, you all set? Anyway, to request $100,000 as seed money for a public-private partnership between the town, the United Way, and private citizens to mitigate the adverse effects that the coronavirus has impacted on a segment of our community.
So for those listening, obviously you attended our workshop this morning and gave us some, how's the progress going on that?
They're in negotiations with several residents here in town to get up what they're hoping to be is a number of $5 million, or ends up, I don't know, but they're concerned about the effects of this. Roughly about 17,000 people, which is our ALICE population, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So they're just trying to get out ahead of it, and the town, I think, would be well served by entering into this P3 with them.
So on that, I think the BET is going to have a dialogue. We have provisions for emergency spending, but that would only cover $5,000. So although I don't know what the temperature is of the BET on this, certainly we could go through the normal process, but that might require RTM. But maybe that's enough for you to show that the town's working its way towards that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's Section 28 of the charter may give you that authority to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to look at that, but I think we're restricted to, there's a dollar restriction on that. But we can look that up. But we'll add that item. Roland has made us a blue sheet. You see how blue it is?
It's white to me.
Yeah, so we call them blue sheets from when everything was paper. But Roland has made this up. It would be from our general fund balance. It would come out of our 999 account. And, there's an explanation on there. And I think we just have to figure out the logistical way to do that.
Mr. Mason, I believe the sheet in front of you doesn't deal with it that way. I think it's dealing with it as professional fees. So I think we were talking about possibly handling it differently out of fund balance and to contribution to external entity as opposed to professional
Correct.
fees.
We can change that. I think that's the Munis code. I'm not sure what it is, but we can ask Roland. He'll be right back.
And
Ms.
can I,
Moretti?
can I make a motion now to add an additional item to our agenda for the additional appropriation of $100,000 to participate in the public-private partnership for emergency aid for residents due to the current public health emergency?
So this is a motion to suspend our rules to add an agenda item, which would need a 2/3 vote to pass, which is 6. So that's the first vote. All those in favor of adding this?
But you need a second. I'll second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Moriarty, seconded by Ms. Hess. So on the motion to add this item to the agenda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I say that is a 12-0? Okay.
And
Is
Mr.
it
Chairman,
12
at the,
Is this 12-0?
Ducks.
That sounded like a yay to me, so.
Okay.
and Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make propose an amendment to that
Okay,
motion.
so we've added this item to the agenda. Ms. Moriarty, your motion? We've added the item, now we
Yes.
need the motion.
Oh, yes, so I would like to make a motion for an additional appropriation of $100,000 to participate in the public-private partnership for emergency aid for residents due to the current public health emergency.
And that, I assume, still has Ms. Hess's second?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Discussion or a motion to amend? Ms. Vassilotis?
Basically, what we had discussed was something similar, but slightly different. So I would move to amend to state under the emergency powers granted to the BET by Section 28 of the Town Charter, motion to approve $100,000 as a contribution to external entities through the First Selectman's Office to address the emergency needs associated with the coronavirus. And I'm coughing, but not for the coronavirus.
And I'll second that.
Discussion? I would ask everyone just to, Mr. Deuce followed by,
Erickson was, Laura
I'm
Erickson.
sorry, I didn't see, I'm sorry.
I would just like, since the town attorney is here, is he in agreement that we have this authority under Section 28? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, to the board, I did review this issue earlier today, and Section 28 does give this board the power, and within Section 28 does not set a monetary limit.
So then we need a motion, the motion needs to be modded to set up a fund, which is something by statute we have to do.
Yes, it would go to an emergency fund for the purposes stated in the motion.
So I'm going to, Ms. Vassilotis, do you have an amendment?
Right, I'd like to just, excuse me, God, Lord, withdraw my amendment and offer a substitute amendment, if that's okay?
Please.
With the person who seconded it, thank
Mr.
you.
Drake?
Under the emergency powers granted to the BET by Section 28 of the Town Charter, a motion to approve $100,000 as a contribution to an emergency fund? Is that what we should say, or an emergency? Special emergency fund, sorry. To address the emergency needs associated with the coronavirus.
Mr. Drake?
Sorry, Roland.
Have to be a fund or an emergency account.
That's fun.
Fund.
Is there,
What does that mean?
is there a difference?
In this motion, you're creating a fund specific for a purpose, emergency, to fund this. So in my opinion, you need a motion to create the fund and you need a motion to fund it. You can probably do it in one motion. Create the fund and add from fund balance $100,000.
Which is what this motion does.
Right. So I read it.
Can I ask Mr. Mason?
Ms. Moriarty?
Just to understand the impact again on the financials, what does it mean for our accounting purposes and our ability to take money out of that account by putting into a
Okay,
special fund?
that's what it is. So Vince is saying the fund is an account line item.
Okay.
So we could, within the selectmen's department, we would set up, which we've already set up for other departments, we would set up this emergency fund account.
Let me restate my motion so that it's clear. Under the emergency powers granted to the BET by Section 28 of the Town Charter, a motion to approve $100,000 as a contribution to an emergency fund through the First Selectman's Office to address the emergency needs associated with the coronavirus.
Mr. Drake's on second for the third time. A little baseball for you. Okay, discussion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just a clarification on the practicalities, because I think Deborah pointed out this was intended to be, as we discussed this morning, a contribution to external entity, because I believe the fund is going to be administered perhaps by United Way and other interested parties in the form of a P3. So I just want to be sure that we are allowed to have the fund be administered, but perhaps with oversight by somebody from the Board of Selectmen, by collaboration with some private entities or not-for-profit entities.
Can I, my understanding is that the town would write a check for $100,000 to whatever 501c3 is set up by whatever entity, whether it be United Way or another body, to as seed money so that they can then go out and get public-private. We would not be administering this, or the town would not be administering.
Right, that's my
It would be-
understanding too. So I just want to be sure that the concept of a fund
Right.
is really what we're talking about, is a pass-through.
Yeah. This is a way of doing this
One
without.
second, Jeff.
Second,
Without needing RTM approval.
just a second, Jeff.
Can I do that?
Oh, no, Mike.
Okay, Mr. Raymer?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Hold on one second, let me just turn the volume down.
I agree with that.
I don't think it's necessary for the motion to reflect the administration of it, and I'd like to leave that silent. And as this is being handled by the First Selectman's Office, it may be that the town attorney advises that if it's handled in a particular way, it may be more amenable to reimbursement through FEMA later on. And I'd like to leave that open for the First Selectman to get the advice of the town attorney and handle it as it may be appropriate.
So let me step
Are
in.
you okay with the wording, Jeff? I guess my question.
It was fine. I didn't want to add in the rest. Your motion, I thought, was just fine. I was looking at Section 28 as you were saying it, and I think it tracked Section 28 just fine. The portion, the place where I had a problem was when it then got discussed that, and they'll be setting up an account and it'll be done through the United Way and this type of thing.
No. That's not
Leave
what's...
that aside. You can just be silent about that,
Right.
and we'll do whatever serves the purposes best with a little further information later on.
Right, and as I explained, that's not what the intent is to set up account for the United Way. It's just to set up monies that will be used by the First Selectman to whatever entity this would be passed through.
Yeah, you don't even need to that entity. Just you're
We're not
appropriating
adding
the
those.
funds
We're
to
not.
the First Select. The section calls for the appropriation to be made to the department or departments that the BET designates.
We're not-
designating the Selectman's office,
we're
and
not-
he'll take care of it from there.
Right, I'm just offering this as an explanation. We're not adding those words to the motion. The motion is exactly how I read it.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Mr. Drake?
Just for clarity, could you read the motion one more time?
Sure. Under the emergency powers granted to the BET by Section 28 of the Town Charter, motion to approve $100,000 as a contribution to an emergency fund through the First Selectman's Office to address the emergency needs associated with the coronavirus.
That seems fine. Could we say appropriation instead of contribution, because appropriation is the word in the charter? But
Okay,
with that Scrivener change, all good.
thank you. You want me to read it again?
I like Leslie's public health emergency language versus coronavirus, because we've been talking about
Are you making a motion to
COVID-19.
amend?
I'm asking Karen to consider, I don't want to make a huge deal out of this, but we've been using the terms coronavirus, COVID-19. I want to be consistent with how the town is using it. There may be other issues that come about. So I think public health emergency covers some economic implications as well, so.
That seems fine.
Okay, so let me reread.
Just for the town attorney's edification, when I allow editing on the floor, it's because I'm not
This is-
feeling well. It's just not normal.
And this is unusual, circumstances. Under the emergency powers granted to the BET by Section 28 of the Town Charter, motion to approve $100,000 as an appropriation to an emergency fund through the First Selectman's Office to address the emergency needs associated with the town's public health emergency.
I assume Mr. Drake is still seconding that.
Yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Who was that?
That was Beth.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to call the roll for the people on the phone. Mr. Raymer, your vote.
Aye. You don't hear me? Aye.
Thank you. Well, no, it's too many coming through. Ms. Crumick,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Weisbrod, you only get to vote once, Beth.
Aye.
Ms. Cruiser.
Aye.
Okay, and so it's 12-0-0 with those votes.
That was proposed as an amendment to the original motion, so now we have to vote on the original motion. as
Correct.
amended.
So now before you is our amended motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I'm just going to think that that's 12-0-0. And I will tell you, there's a lesson here we'll be talking about later on how we're going to do this going forward. Do me a favor, you got to go. You're paying, no. Honestly, I know you have some new measures for town hall. Anything you want to, do you think that's important to us that we need to know, or?
We're, we're going to close town hall to the public for visitation, except for if you have something that's time sensitive, you'd have to do that via appointment. And we're going to revisit it every single day. This is going to be in place, so I think April 3rd, we'll reassess it at that point. But we're meeting daily, so we've closed the Civic Center. We're closing the Civic Center, both Eastern and Western, and playgrounds. We will keep the parks, beaches, tennis, and paddleball courts open for now, but we will be reassessing it as we go forward, as we try to flatten the curve on this and get ahead of it, so that in 6 or 8 weeks, we'll hopefully be on the other side of it.
Questions? Thank you.
Nice.
And on behalf
you.
of the BT, it would really do us an honor if you would really, all of the Board of Selectmen, thank the staff. I pulled in this morning, as I said this morning, I couldn't believe how many, everybody was here working, we're trying to do this. It's a challenging time. I was fortunate enough to make your staff meeting last week, and
We did that today, and we'll continue to tell them, of your gratitude, but also thank you all for what you do. Appreciate it, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
tonight.
Beth?
Hey, Mike,
Yes,
can I ask the first selectman a quick question?
yes.
Is there
getting away that easy.
any discussion about differentiating between critical employees in town hall and those that aren't critical at some point, that they not all have to come in as this continues?
Yes, we addressed that today.
If they could work from home?
Yes, we addressed that today, and what we're going to be doing is leaving it up to the discretion of the various departments, and also alternating staff, including in the Office of the First Selectman. We will be doing that. I mean, I'll be there, but we'll be having people taking, turns on, who works Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 week, Tuesday, Thursday the next, and then switching off the following week. Just to for the weeks to come, and then we'll reassess.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I think that brings us to item number 2 on the agenda. Can I call on for our routine applications, I'd like to call on the clerk, Mr. Drake.
Yes, we have 3 routine applications. PD1 in the police department for $29,988, which is an approval to use item. FD1 from the fire department, $800,000, which is a release of conditions. And ED10 from the Board of Education, $1,055,000, which is also a release of conditions.
I just want to clarify that it was actually PD2.
Sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, you said,
That's okay.
sorry.
Okay, those items have been moved by the clerk. Do I have a second? Second. As you know, we're still wrestling with committee reports, but what I would ask is, I hope to have an answer on that, but we're trying to obviously limit exposure. So is there any, I'll give everybody a chance. Is there any questions or comments on these items? If not, can I take a vote? I'll do the phone first. Mr. Raymer?
Aye.
Ms. Krummick?
Aye.
Ms. Cruiser?
Aye.
Mr. Weisbrod? I bet she's at the refrigerator.
Mr. Weisbrod?
Mr. Westbrook?
He's not there. Okay, and so those three there, and all those in favor here, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So I'm going to put that down as 11-0-0.
Wait, I'm sorry, I missed the vote and it's an aye.
We just reduced taxes by 20%, and you vote aye for that, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 12-0-0, thank you. Assessor's report. Our assessor is not, thank you. Sorry for the keeping you out. Assessor's report, Lauren is not with us this evening. She was on, if I'm understanding this correctly, she was on a vacation, and she has to follow the protocol coming back into the States. So self-quarantine. So I think that would begin Friday evening and it'll run till following Monday. That'll be 15 or 16 days. So, but we know that how the department was set up. Ms. Moriarty and I met with the controller in our monthly meeting today, and Peter's gonna let's see if they need anything, but other than that, everything should be fine. Peter seems to think it was kind of a quieter period right now, so we're maybe okay. So, Leslie?
I think Lauren is, she is in touch with the department and has her
Yeah.
computer and everything with her. So even though she's not in the office, she's working.
Okay.
I will make a,
Hang
shall
on,
I?
I have a question.
Okay.
With everything going on, who would it be that would start having discussions about the reval as far as having them this year?
What do you mean as far as having?
Well, we had in the past, back in 2008, the state had made a modification in the reval cycle and allowed an extended period. It wasn't, I think we're supposed to do it every 5 years. I think it was extended. It's just a dialogue, I would say.
I think what I'm hearing is that, is it possible to make some overtures to the state to either delay or extend based on this current, based on the current situation? And who would that person be?
It sounds to me like it may be premature. I think there is a process for it. I think we had a reval 2005 and 2010. So I think maybe what happened was we're going to do 1 and 9. The problem, the issue, as I remember it, there were very few sales in those 2 calendar years before, 8 and 9. And
I don't think we're worried about the mechanics. It's the fact that there is a state statute that says you have to do it, and is there a way to possibly
and I
extend
think
that?
it all depends on you have enough sales and so forth. There's a process. And then
No,
I
but
think that
Leslie-
what happens is that the first selectman makes a request to the governor for the delay. And it
Okay.
goes through
I will
the,
check on
That's
this.
that's the answer.
That's
Thank you.
probably the answer. Okay.
it goes through the assembly.
Can I just ask Mr. Mason, what would be the issues that would cause you to delay?
Oh,
the
I'm looking at the workforce right now. Worst case scenario, the workforce is just not here to do the I'm not sure exactly where this is going to go as far as the workforce and the work in the office to do it. And they're still doing
I mean,
inspections. and
there may not be a delay.
There may not be.
Depending on how long this pandemic goes on. But I guess we're just exploring, how this would happen if the pandemic goes on, God forbid, for 6 or 7 months.
Right.
all.
And
It's just a
again,
dialogue.
there's two vendors too. They're outside vendors that do this, and they're,
Okay, controllers report.
no, I would like to just make a motion to accept the assessor's report.
Oh,
May I
I'm
do
sorry.
that?
I'm sorry, thank you.
But before that, can I make one comment just to highlight one bit of good news that we might see is that the actions of the BAA were less than estimated to be in our budget documents. So there's a small bit of upside.
Thank you. I forgot that. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so I have a motion to accept the assessor's report. Do I need a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Hess. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. It sounds like a musical board. Okay, 1200, thank you.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman, BET members, and telephone caller in. I'll talk first a little bit about the refunding. A couple of questions came up. Bill Lindsay of Hilltop Securities is in the process of putting together an analysis of the savings. As noted in the controller's report, you need best practices. You need a 3% net present value of the par amount of the bonds being refinanced. And in the email that was passed last week, the savings were starting to go away. However, the process is as follows. We did a refunding of the 2008 of the 2003 North Mianus and Millbrook sewer assessments, okay, as opposed to general obligation bonds. And then in 2016, we refinanced the 2012 and the 2015. So we're looking at refinancing the 2008, the 12-15, and then the refinancing of the 16. And the way the process goes is Bill Lindsay is putting together the analysis. It's got to show the savings. And the Robinson Cole is in the process of developing a resolution. As we did in the previous refinancing, my plan is to attach it to the April 2nd meeting of the BET with the other bond resolutions. So it'll be an add-on, independent of the budget process. And it'll go to the RTM. Okay. There's somewhat of a question as to whether or not the RTM will be able to meet in April. If not, hopefully it'll go normally with the budget process at the May meeting with the RTM. The resolution is good for 2 years once it's been passed, okay? So if the savings go away in the next, or not there, we have up to the next 2 years to do the refinancing, and then the resolution is no longer in effect. Is there any questions on that before I move on to another topic from the phone, or none?
Just one question. What's the approximate face value of those bonds, if you know?
The three listed in the controller's report is about 13 million, and it's a total of about 21 when you add the refinanced bonds in from the previous year. And so it would be about 21 million. However, one of the pieces is there's 4 payments left on the sewer assessments for North Mianus and Millbrook. It's about $1.4 million. So if we don't get it done by then, $1.4 million will have already been paid, will not be part of the issue. Moving on, the fire study. The fire study that we contracted with, we have a steering committee. I want to send out a special set of thanks to Ben Branyan, who's been fantastic in moving this process along. We had the kickoff meeting in January. We had a large number of interviews between the BET, the steering committee, the RTM members, the district RTM district members, and all of the key players in the fire department and associated with the fire and volunteer. The plan is a 16-week study. It's got 6 to 7 tasks. One of the tasks was completed, and it was shared by Mr. Raymer. He sent out the profile, which everybody had a copy of. And the plan is to have a draft in May, and then a final copy in June. And again, there will be the challenges presented by the coronavirus guidelines set by the governor or the president of holding a public meeting, which was part of the process. So we're looking at finalizing it in May, June, and then we'll go from there. One more, and I'll open it up to questions, is the internal auditor. Two more. The internal auditor interviews, we have 5 on Friday. Because the building has been closed to the public, we will be doing the interviews over the phone, which loses a lot of value. So, well, that's the best we can do as far as the interviews, the internal auditor. So Friday, we're going to do 5 over the phone. Also, the Natasha and I, the treasurer Natasha and I, were invited to be on an interview panel for Nathaniel Witherall for Wednesday. That also was canceled as far as interviews coming into the building, and we were removed from that interview panel. And then finally, the Bloom Shapiro internal audit services done by an external auditor were supposed to be started today, but the Board of Ed shut down effective last week, and they couldn't come into the building. So it looks like we're going to have to realign the priorities on the 5 audits. I sent out an email to the audit committee members asking for permission to do that. And hopefully we can move up the marina audit or the, not the transportation audit, we're working on the scope change, the skating rink audit. So I'll open it up to any questions.
So if I may, on the fire study, I echo your comments on not only Ben, but your work on this. That I agree with Mr. Raymer, that first document that came out was phenomenal. I wish we had had that years before. I'll open it up to, there's 4 of us on that steering committee, Ms. Vesalotis, Mr. Raymer, Mr. Weisbrod. If they have anything they want to add, the next phase, I think we were supposed to meet with them about a month from now in the original. Do you recall that, our next get-together as the steering committee with them?
There is one of the tasks is when they come up with 2 or 3 of the additional products, the answer is yes. They were supposed to meet with you prior to the, before the draft audit stage.
Okay, I knew there was something. Ms. Vesalotis?
No, I would just echo and thank you, Pete, and Ben for going above and beyond the call of duty on a lot of this. There were questions from our TM members, and I think that they were addressed very professionally, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the report of the controller for? Moved and second, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye. To you, Mr. Mason, wanted to make sure you heard me.
Yes, I need one more aye off the phone.
Aye.
Okay.
You've gotten 4.
Okay. Everybody else? Aye. Okay. Thank you. That goes in this pile with that. Moves us to treasurer's report for the, this is going to look a lot different next month. Any member have any comments or questions on the treasurer's report? I'll take a motion to accept the treasurer's report
So
for
moved.
February 2020. Seconded by Mr. Deuce. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's 4.
See, I didn't hear 4.
I heard 3.
Right. I only have 2, though.
Beth, are you approving or abstaining this month?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. So I still have one more aye.
You have an aye from me.
Oh, okay. So that will, everybody here in favor?
Yeah, you have an aye from me as well.
11-01. Thank you. Standing committees, nothing. Liaison, IT, nothing there. Special project, we've done the fire study. BET schedule. I would have liked to have done this after new business, but let me just say I appreciate everybody taking the time to read my week's worth of notes that I scrambled to get to you on everything that's going on. There is a lot of conversation going on in town about how meetings are going to be run, what the requirements are from the new directive from Hartford. All I could say to everybody is our next scheduled formal get-together is our public hearing, and then obviously followed by decision day. That's 12 days away. I cannot tell you how much I think things could or may change. We don't know where this is going to go. I would just say, let's take one day at a time and go from there. One of the changes that I think is going into place tomorrow is that town hall is closed at 8 p.m. Okay. So, for instance, just as an example, if that was the case, then we would have to change decision day. So, but again, I don't know if there's going to be an exception. I don't even know how to ask for an exception. I don't know any of that. That's just unclear to us right now. I would say there's dialogue with the RTM and the RTM leadership. I think we have done everything. Our meeting this morning, our current rules covered what we did this morning. This is being taped. I know Channel 79, there's a Verizon channel, and they're even working on YouTube. There's a new requirement. We have help on filing the tape somewhere for record or something.
What will happen is they will post it on YouTube, and then we would post the link on our BET website so that it would be available for people.
And by the way, I have seen the email communications back and forth, and I've shared them, and I appreciate it. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Under the rules, under the executive order, you can conduct a meeting in a closed session to the public, providing that there's live broadcasting or simulcasting of your meeting through some electronic means, so that the public can view in live time what you're doing. So that can be in a multitude of formats. So I believe IT discussed that today a little bit during the department heads meeting, and we're looking at different solutions, but I think as long as you are on your local government access TV, that should satisfy your legal requirement.
so, okay, so this is helpful
Problem's going to be
with public input.
with the first selectman's closing of the town hall at 8 o'clock if your meeting goes after 8 o'clock.
Right, so that is a challenge. So here's my question. We do a public hearing, so it'll be live. It's that will meet that requirement. But we'll have a room, whatever the idea of the day is, we'll have some kind of room restriction. We have very few meetings. We have a public hearing. We have very few meetings where we're open to the public to speak. Different than the RTM, different than the Board of Ed, different than P&Z, different than our various boards and commissions. Board of Selectmen is an example. The question I have is, how do we do a public hearing? And then the other question I have is that you can see our decision day meeting is an enormous amount of voting. And the RTM is even a bigger amount of voting under month. But you can see the challenges I'm having right now. I would have to do almost a roll call vote for every single, I mean, that's going to be a challenge for us. But what you're saying is our decision day meeting could be closed as long as it's visible.
What I'm going to suggest, and I think you hit the nail on the head in your earlier comment, is this is progressive.
Right.
And every few hours, let alone every day, it's becoming more and more progressive in what we're being told we should or shouldn't do. The president came out earlier today and said the recommendation is meetings of 10 or less, as opposed to 50 or less. So what I'm going to suggest is that we kind of monitor the situation, because we just don't know what it's going to be. But it's a public hearing, so generally the public has a right to participate at public hearing. We might be able to set up, other towns are using things like Facebook Live, where someone from the public can sign on through Facebook and send their questions in. So it'd be someone here receiving the questions and then asking the questions to the board through Facebook. So there's a number of different platforms that you can look at to allow the public to participate remotely. But under the executive order, you do have the ability to advance business notwithstanding the absence of the public participation.
Ms. Erickson.
So normally, we don't answer questions at a public hearing, we just take comment. But we do generally get a lot of emails, and we have been getting a lot of emails. Would it be permissible for those emails to be part of the public record and perhaps either part of the minutes or a brief summary of the emails read aloud for the record as opposed, so taking public comment via email versus a requirement to be here in person, would that be permissible?
Well, I would view that as correspondence, and particularly under the circumstances, absolutely. If someone had a comment regarding the public hearing, what I would, so that you're not inundated, it would be ideal if someone was sending in a comment that they're, say, I'm sending in this comment for purposes of the public hearing. So they qualify their statement as opposed to, just sending a blanket statement that you're not exactly sure if it's germane to your public hearing. Again, I don't want to set you up for being suddenly inundated, because when you have a public hearing, the public generally has to come out to participate. When they get to do it remotely, you can increase your participation tremendously. So that's something to balance, and I mean, you want to encourage public participation, but you want to do it in a productive and meaningful way.
I like the day-by-day step right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I just don't know where we're going to be in a week from now, let alone a day from now.
Okay. So again, please.
Yeah, from my perspective, and this is completely different from your municipal law perspective, the value in covering a public hearing, making people's views public, would, if such a thing were to take place where people were emailing questions and getting responses, CCing the local media on that, is that legal? Is that permissible? Is that doable? I'm as lost as you, as anyone else, so.
This is all new territory, believe me.
Right.
Exactly.
To your question, I would say that the governor suspended certain obligations of the municipalities to conform to certain statutory requirements, but I would take the position that anything that came into the town vis-a-vis an email or some other platform would be subject to FOI.
That could take so long, though.
I don't think we can compel the public to CC it directly to you, but I think all those documents would be available on the date of your public hearing, and I'm certain it would be easy enough to compile them and share them with the media prior to the public hearing.
That's how I would do it.
Right? That's, I think, the best we could do under the circumstances.
I don't know if you've met.
We just met.
No, okay.
No, I know.
From the Greenwich time, he's assigned and he's with us at all the time. He's with us.
Yes.
Sometimes even if we have a tie, we give him a vote.
I leave him to your discretion.
Okay, well, this sort of helps. Thank you.
Absolutely.
New business. I'll call on the HR committee. First item is the MC salary and benefit schedules for fiscal year 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The HR committee met on February 24th to consider the salary pool for M&C employees. We recommend a 2% increase in the M&C compensation pool and forward this recommendation to the BET Budget Committee. Compensation shall be based on the following principles: receive the maximum increase for consistently going beyond standard expectations and standing out as a performance leader and or demonstrating performance in a special role or project. Any employee who meets either or both of these criteria and does so in an exceptional manner will receive the maximum increase. An employee who meets either or both of these criteria and does so in an excellent manner to receive the maximum increase less 0.5%, and an employee who meets expectations to receive the maximum increase less 1%. An employee who does not meet expectations shall not be eligible for a salary increase. My recommendation is to consider this first. We are also recommending an increase in M&C contribution to medical benefits. I could at least discuss this, or if you would like to discuss this first, I can
think it was
give the
the-
report.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Okay. I circulated to the committee what the impact to M&C would be as far as an average cost. But the BET-HR committee voted 3-1-0 to increase the MC contribution to healthcare benefits from 10% to 11%. Initially, the motion was to increase the amount to 12.5%, but was amended to 11% and approved by the HR committee as amended 3-1-0. I can go through the numbers if you'd like, but I think you all have them and we can discuss them further.
Mr. Mason?
I'm sorry, Ms. Moriarty?
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion from the committee that the pool for compensation for M&C employees to be 2.25% with a tiered performance strategy.
The pool.
As the pool, as
Yes.
recommended there. Also, the same 0.5 percentage points drops for different performance levels, and also to move the employee health care contribution from 10% to 11%. So that's an amendment.
Do I have a second on that? I have a second on that. The discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Before discussion, if I may, I think the HR committee is saying the MC pool is a 2%
Correct.
set of dollars to be applied to the grading system that we have, and an additional 1.0% employee contribution towards healthcare.
Correct.
And I think the amended motion, the only difference I see is a 2.5% pool.
2.25.
I'm sorry, 2.25%. Let me write this down. 2.5% pool and the same additional 1.0%.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Where'd everybody go?
So I can talk to the amendment. We felt that there's when we look at the historical benefits for M&C or historical salary increases, we see many years at 2.5. Last year it was 2.0. It does try to reflect the economic conditions, and granted, right now we're a little bit in flux, but we felt that this pool of employees is our most critical pool of employees. They set the standards of performance for the entire town. We know we have salary compression. We know that their employees, most of which are part of unions, have different stipulations for their agreements. They get their raises regardless of performance. They have other financial benefits that they get in terms of stipends and longevity pay and steps and other aspects. We felt that pool and this group of employees is deserving of 2.25% as a total pool, especially given the change that we're making here in their health care.
Okay, on the motion to amend, can I ask a question? Maybe it's to both of you. The difference between the two motions would be with the current positions, Phil, obviously that could change with a retirement or a new hire. Is 36,274 the difference
Yes, about $36,000.
between okay, just verifying that. I'm sorry.
Actually, no.
No.
It's half that. It's about $18,000.
Stand by. Correct. I take that back. So it would be 18,137. Okay. Got it. Okay, further discussion? This is on the motion to amend the resolution. Further discussion? Anybody on the phone? Further discussion? Okay, so
No.
this is on the amended, we're voting on the motion to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Can I safely say that the four people on the phone were an aye?
Raymer was.
Okay,
Crumick was,
keep going.
Cruiser was.
Yes, that's all four.
Okay. And here, show of hands for aye. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Why am I missing a vote? No, I did vote. Let's try that again. I have 4 ayes. All in favor, aye. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. 4 and 3 makes 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5. That item has carried 7-5-0.
So I'm sorry, who was the seventh vote, just so I know?
Mason,
Okay, thanks.
now, that's on the motion to amend. That has passed. So now on the amended motion. Okay, all those in favor? Well, let's do the phone first.
This is on the motion as amended.
This is on the motion as amended. Okay, on the phone, I need to hear votes.
Aye.
Mr. Raymer?
Aye.
That's 2. Hello? Huh.
Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected. I'm voting in favor of the motion.
Okay, that's 3. I'm waiting for one more. I think it's Mr. Weisbrod.
No, I said aye.
Oh, okay.
Aye. Miriam, Cruiser says aye.
Okay, thank you. I have 4 ayes there. All in favor here, signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So opposed, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm showing that vote, and this is new territory. I'm showing that as 8-4. There's a different vote on this one.
Just
And
for
then
those, Mr. Drake
Mr. Drake, right.
and Mr. Mason.
Okay, that item is
I'm
carried.
sorry, who was it? Just so, it's Mike, I assume you were one, and who was the other?
Mr. Drake.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, next item, Registrar of Voters salary. I will call on the chair of the HR committee again.
Yes, I also circulated to you the rationale and the information provided to the committee. But the HR committee voted by a vote of 4-0-0 to increase the salary of the registrar of voters from $38,115 each to $52,000 each. After reviewing the salaries of the registrar of voters from Greenwich comparable Connecticut towns, and given the complexity of the position and the knowledge and education credentials needed to fulfill these part-time positions, the committee considered adjusting the compensation at an equitable professional level and eliminating the stipends available for primaries. The committee commented that the change would continue to encourage people with exceptional qualifications to pursue these part-time positions. We voted 4-0-0 to change the compensation for the part-time position to $52,000 for each registrar and discontinue the stipend for non-general elections. So the motion carried. So the committee is recommending to the full BET to change the compensation for the registrar of voters to the amount indicated.
Thank you. That comes on behalf of a committee that does not need a second. Discussion, Ms. Moriarty?
Yes, I want to make amendment to that recommendation. I want to amend that the salary for the registrar of voters would be $40,000 in the first year of this change. I guess it's for the calendar year of 21.
I think it's the elected term.
The elected, so the first year of their elected term to be $40,000 and change to $42,000 for the second year of their elected term, plus they would receive stipends of $1,500 each for every primary or special election.
Do I have a second on that?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Raymer. Discussion on the motion to amend. Ms.
So
Murray?
the thought process here is, we've had these discussions with the registrar of voters every year, and I want to first say, but I truly appreciate the professionalism that they use to their jobs, the amount of dedication and research they have. However, the job is a part-time position, and as far as the hours and the days spent in the office compared to the other professional employees, just felt it was not appropriate to raise it to such a high percentage of what their performance is. I think it would create conflicts within the organization as well to raise it to the level that's being recommended. Given what we're looking at, we just had a split vote over 0.25% for our MNCs. To look here at such a significant increase does just not seem to be consistent.
Okay, further discussion? Ms. I'm sorry, Karen. Ms. Faslotis?
I'm not one to vote for salary increases lightly. However, the complexity of the job, the amount of participation by both of these have changed significantly over the years. My only question, too, is that sometimes they have to run an election for a caucus. So we are not proposing that they get a stipend for a caucus, which is different from a primary or special election. I'm just, questioning whether that's appropriate or whether we should include that in the motion. Again, feel that, I have personal experience with this, having taught the certification, actually having prepared and taught the certification course for the Registrar of Voters. I understand the challenges that they have, and I would not be voting for this amendment.
Ms. Erickson?
I really look at this, the motion that the HR committee passed, not really as a salary increase for 2 employees that are part-time, but as a market reset of salaries commensurate with data that was provided, which I appreciate the data that was provided by the registrar's office, to really bring the position more in line with the demands of the current election scenario. I mean, we have electronic voting, or the electronic poll book. We have numerous issues. We expect a huge turnout this year in the November election. So I'm really separating the individuals currently in the position, although I appreciate their feedback, with what do we want to pay people to do this very vital role. So I'm really looking at it from that lens. So I actually support the HR proposal.
Further discussion?
Yeah, this
Ms.
is David Weisbrod.
Go right ahead,
I hope
David.
I'm not-
Go
hope
ahead.
I'm not interrupting. I would support the amendment. 2 reasons. One, it's a 37% increase in 1 year, which to me is unusual, very unusual, number one. And number 2, I think in the comparable data, we don't really see data from some of our most peer towns. For example, Darien and New Canaan are not showing up there. So I'm not sure what they show and what their experience is. But in order to go up 36% or 37% without having and I understand that the head of HR feels that this is a unusual and maybe not advisable increment in one shot. It may be true that it is true that the work of the registrars is really critical, important, and they do a great job. That's not the debate. The debate is whether we should just make this kind of a very abrupt change in one budget session.
Further discussion?
I would offer something, if I may.
Please.
While I probably would have supported a slightly higher increase, it's worth mentioning that these increases, each of them, are increases at 5% in each year.
Thank you. Further, Ms. Faslotis?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that this request has come before the BET over many years, and each time was rejected. So I would just echo what Laura said and not look at this as an increase percentage-wise, but as a market reset. You know, I find myself in a position arguing for us spending more money, which I don't normally do, but I just think it's a fairness issue.
I want to go, if any further discussion, I just want to clarify a point. I think Ms. Vassilotis had a good point, and I've had this now for a while, and I may need Roland's answers. The actual document in our budget book says, it states the salary, but it says an additional $1,500 stipend for each register, for each primer, whatever it is, but it's only for a primary, and I think, and I want to just be careful, Ms. Moriarty's motion was to do primary and special election. Ms. Vassilotis brought up the question about caucus. I'm very torn with this. I have been part of this discussion for a long time. But I would say anytime that they have to, set up to do an election, whether it's a caucus, a special election, or a primary, I would still be in favor of the stipend there. So that wasn't included in your original language. If there was a caucus, is that what it's called, a caucus election? And I would also open it up for anybody. Is there any other elections that they may have to run, which makes them gear up and call poll workers and report to the state and whatever they have to do?
We could be in a position having a referendum. There are other things that could occur where we might have an election, but a referendum comes to mind.
So we could rephrase that instead of saying primaries and special elections to say stipends when the public is asked to come to the polls. Any portion of the public is asked to go to the polls.
If it's your motion.
I would make that change. I don't remember who seconded my motion.
Jeff did.
Jeff,
Mr. Raymer, are you, Ms. Moriarty?
I adopt that change.
Okay.
Ask a question about that. Does that, just to be clear, but the November election is not included in this, is that correct?
No, that's.
I just want to make sure, but your words about getting the
True,
people to come
except
to
the general
vote was very general and might bring in the November election. We should make sure.
The stipend to,
Could I just make a
Please.
suggestion for the stipends? The stipends of $1,500 each for non-general elections, I think would cover it, rather than saying whenever the public comes out. But I mean, basically,
And a vote on a referendum's called an election?
well, it would be, we would be doing that.
Okay, fine.
So,
So I would support that wording change in my motion.
Mr. Raymer, do we still have your second?
You do.
Okay. Okay. We still have the amended resolution before us. Further discussion?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the change in the audio. The audio was not clear.
I will try to explain it. What we're doing, the salary, there's an amended motion from Ms. Moriarty, seconded by Mr. Raymer, with the salary for the first year of the elected term and the second. But there's an add to any time that there's other than the non-general election, meaning a primary, a special election, a caucus, or a referendum, that the stipends would be available for those events as well. Mr. Weisbrod, was that acceptable explanation?
I got it, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so anything further? Okay, so on the amended motion, which includes the salary year one, salary year two, and the new language. Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion signify by saying aye. I'm going to do the phone first if I can.
Aye.
Mr. Ramers and I.
Aye.
I heard.
Beth?
David.
Thank you. Okay, that's in favor.
Aye. Cruiser, aye as well.
Okay, here, signify by raising your hand if you're in favor of this motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here. Opposed. Leslie, are you in favor? Yes. Okay, 6. Opposed. 1, 2. So 6 and 4 makes 10 and 2. That vote on the, to amend the motion was 10 in favor, 2 opposed. Now, on the motion as amended, unless there's any
Sorry,
substitute.
Mike, sorry to keep interrupting. Who were the two that were opposed, so I know?
Ms. Vassilotis and Ms. Erickson.
Thank you.
Okay, on now the vote for the motion as amended. I'll do the phone again first. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's Rayner and White. And that's Cruiser and Beth.
So do I have 4 ayes there?
You have 4.
Okay, and everybody here who's in favor, signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 2. That motion is carried 10-2. Thank you. We've done our Cronus Advisor Chair's report. I would say thank you to everybody, and I want to just thank Peter, Roland, your whole department. This is a interesting time. I think the fallout from this one, I've said to some people, I remember 2008 and 10, and those were tough. This is really something we're all going to have to work on and be patient, and I'm seeing the impacts of it already, and I want to thank you for the help with the budget workshop. I want to thank everybody for that. I think we got through it, and we're just taking things day by day and just hope this virus clears up and we do better. So that's kind of where.
Mike.
Yes,
David
Mr.
Westbrook.
Yes.
I just want to express my appreciation to you for your, really managing through this with such agility. You really did provide a great deal of leadership, and in a time of unusual strain and stress. And so I, for one, am appreciative, and I wanted you to know.
No, I appreciate that. And I will tell you that Ms. Moriarty and Ms. Vassilotis, I think they're going to take my phone number out of their phone and they're going to get rid of my emails because I didn't do any of that alone. I mean, I had help from everybody. We have some of us running committees and the budget, everything. It's not me. It really is just help. And but I thank you very much. Oh, minutes. I'm sorry. Mr. Drake.
We have minutes before us, and I think Mr. Raymer had a modification.
Which I emailed to everybody over the weekend. I would move those amendments.
Can you highlight those, Jeff, for us?
Sure. On page 1, after the listing of the people present, there was, by Scrivener's error, it picked up words to the effect of this is welcoming everybody for the first meeting of the new term. That must have been something left on the word processor from the January minutes. So I deleted that. Then when it came to the routine motions, routine applications, they were repeated twice. And so I just simply deleted the first time they appeared and left them the second time where it had the synopsis of what the reports were. The votes are all repeated in the second round where they're shown. I made, lastly, a small change to the wording of the motion that I had put forward. It was captured in the minutes as being a request that on future budget committee applications that there should be an expression of the rationale of the budget committee. My request was no, on routine applications before the BET, not the budget committee, that there should be a brief report from the committees that acted on them, which is usually just the budget committee, but occasionally, such as we had this evening with the HR committee making a report, that whatever committee acted on the matter should make a brief report. And again, you received the changes by email from me in writing. I'm sorry it's a little hard to relay this verbally, but you did receive them from me by email at 5-something or other yesterday evening.
I'd support those if you promise never to do it again in the 24 hours before the meeting. Just kidding, Jeff.
I mean, in candor, I did send those to you on OneDrive, but as things happen sometime, and that was sent to you a couple of weeks ago, but they were not incorporated, so I repeated it again last night.
All righty. All right, and if that was my fault, I apologize.
Okay, so
Great. Before you vote on them, I have two just corrections. Under the treasurer's report, the motion, I didn't oppose it, I abstained. And at the end, there, and when you're accepting minutes at the end, there's one that's a vote of 10-01. That one was an abstention by Ms. Cruiser,
Which minutes
which
were
should be
those?
reflected. On page 4. The second motion from the bottom, 10-01, should be abstained, Ms. Cruiser.
Okay. Fine.
Thank you.
any further additions or corrections? Okay, with that, I will call for approval of the BET minutes as amended for February 24th, 2020. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to call that,
I'm abstaining because I was not present at the meeting.
time, okay. So I'm counting that vote as 11-0, one abstention due to Karen Faslotis is not voting. She's abstaining because she wasn't there.
And just for the record, I had the flu, not the coronavirus.
Mr. Mason,
Yes, sir.
in the spirit of our new telecommunications regime, I make a motion that we adjourn.
And
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Mr. Weisbrod. Could you say that again?
You guys are taking the motion away from Ms. Cruiser and Ms. Erickson. You know that.
Thank you, Mr. Weisbrod. And I'm sure we have a second on it. Everybody, good health, keep your hands clean, and let's just do what we can do for the town.